Hi everyone and welcome. This is Teresa Litchfield. I wanted to share a fun technique of monoprinting today, and I just took a class from Altenew Academy recently. It's taught by Sarah Newman, and she gives all kinds of great tips and tricks, and I really had a fun adventure taking this class. I thought I would incorporate my love for decorating with this card, and I love the Farmhouse Style. And that's what gave me my inspiration for the card today. So here's the gel printing plate that I got from Gel Press, and it is a 5x7 size. And I just got it on Amazon. I know a lot of places have them. This is the packaging it comes in, and I thought it was great to be able to store it in that. If you've never used one of these before, it's just a thick, flexible piece of silicone. I'm going to put that on my non-stick mat that comes with my glass media mat, and that'll just make for an easy cleanup. They do make these in different sizes. I just thought the 5x7 was a good size to start with. My first monoprint piece is going to be for the background. I'm going to use the Dark Night, Nimbus, and my spray bottle. And I'll use a piece of Nina Classic Crest, the 110 pound. And I'm just going to put that ink right on the plate and just smear it across. This is such an easy way to get an inky background. I was really surprised by this. And then to spray it, I sprayed mine about 3 times and just lay that paper in it, and I'm just so amazed. You could really spray it more or less. I just wanted to see the water drops on the back. So I peel it off, and I just love what it did. I did decide to ink it up again. I'm using the Dark Night again. I wanted more of a solid background, but again, I did want to see that texture of those water drops. So you can see what happens when I do it again, and you get a more solid piece. But you still get all that fun texture. And then I use my spray bottle and clean it up with the microfiber towel. I'm going to use the Altenew Craft a Flower Tulip layering dies. And here's the layering guide. I always keep mine in the package. And I'm going to use that on the flowers of this. So I'm going to monoprint some cardstock for my colors. And I'm going to use Pink Pearl and blush for this. So I took the Pink Pearl and put it on about half of the plate, and then I take the blush and put it on the other half. This is really going to end up being the second layer of the flower. Sprayed it out a couple times, laying my cardstock in it. And I love the two-tone effect you get with it. It gives that ombre effect. And when it dries, it's really cool. I do kind of take up some of that ink that's left on the plate. Again, I clean it off, and I'm ready for my next one. My next piece is going to be for the leaves and stems, and I'm going to use the Shadow Creek and Firefly, and that's the first layer of the stem. That's the largest one. So I'll lay down again the Shadow Creek on one half and the Firefly on the other. And it's okay if you don't cover the whole plate. I think it's kind of nice to have some white space in it, especially when you die cut it. It's really forgiving. Press it in, and when you lift it up, and sometimes you're not really happy with what it looks like, but again, when you die cut it, it's just going to look great. For the second half of the leaf, I'm going to use Mountain Pine and Moss, and again, cover the half of the plate with Mountain Pine. And I used the moss. I wanted a little bit of difference of color, so the moss is a little bit more yellow. And you can see when I put the paper on it, I'm not really happy with how it turned out, so I end up coming back in and doing Mountain Pine just all by itself. But when you do that, and I let it dry in between, and when you pull it up, I just loved how it ended up. And you can see that moss kind of through it. And then when I'm done with all the pieces, I'm going to heat set these. And so I use my heat gun, and kind of go back and forth. So when it starts to curl on one side, I turn it over and do the other side and kind of go back and forth that way, and it flattens it out. If it doesn't flatten out, you can always use your laminator too. For the background, I'm going to use the Dotted Scales cover die from Altenew, and it just pierces the paper, it doesn't cut, and it really adds to the texture of this. So don't pay attention to that gray piece back there. I was going to do a white flower, and I decided to use pink pearl instead on the first layer, the most solid piece of the tulip. And I'll show how to layer this. I used white on the third layer, and I used perfect pearl on it in a water bottle, and I put about a teaspoon of perfect pearls in that and shake it up, and then I spray it on there. I'm going to use some Prismacolor pencils on the base of the tulips just to give a more lifelike look on the bottom of them. I start out by using lime peel on the bottom of the first layer, and I use kind of a flicking motion, kind of like I would do with my Copic markers, my alcohol markers. And then I change and go to light umber, and I do that in kind of like a little circular motion. And then this is slate. That's just going to push back the shade of that. And I use a Mono Zero eraser from Tombow, just kind of soften the edge of it if I need to, and also white. And I come back into it to soften it. And then I just layer the first and second layer together and just kind of make sure they kind of match up. That just gives a little more realistic look to the tulip. They always have kind of that green on the bottom. So I'm using my waffle flower media mat, and I'm spraying that with the perfect pearl water. I spray that a couple times, and you can also come in and use that with a small brush and add more, and it even adds more texture. I use the media mat to heat set that. I've arranged the tulips how I like them, and I'm going to use a piece of press and seal just to put over the top of that and peel it off and save it. I'm going to cut that panel down a bit. I want to be able to see my other piece in back of it. So the white piece in back, I'm going to also monoprint that. I'm going to use the Rocky Shores just around the edge of my plate. And I just want to kind of frame that in. I don't need it in the center. And then I'm going to use the white gouache over the top of that. And I use the white gouache without any water. And the white gouache is kind of really thick. And you want to kind of go into more of the center with it. But look how it beads up. It is so fun. But again, I didn't add any water to it. And I really got a really fun texture out of this. I really wanted this to look like a distressed whitewashed wood. And it really does. And it gives that texture with that thick paint. I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was such a cool look, and I don't know any other way to get that. I'm going to use this distressed tool I have from Prima. I don't even know if they make that anymore, but I'm going to use that edge. I know there's other tools out there that do this. This is what I had, but I'm going to distress the edge of that background panel. And then I'm going to add some birthmark to it. I just run around the edge on that, and I kind of go on the corners a little bit more, kind of into the corners. And then I'm going to emboss that with pure white embossing powder from Altenew. And I just thought that kind of finished that off. I'm going to add a piece of fun foam to that and pop it up for some dimension. And that really gives that separation from the whitewash to the blue background. And then I'll just put on my flowers, and I really liked how when I trimmed it down, some of the leaves and that tulip kind of overhang. The press and seal is such a clever way to keep your arrangement intact and to be able to glue it down, especially when you have those little thin pieces on the stems. For my sentiment on this, I'm going to use the Sentiment Strips 2 from Altenew, and I'm going to use the Thoughts of You Make Me Smile and the Obsidian Black ink. After I stamp the sentiment, I'm going to emboss it with clear embossing powder. Now I'm going to add my finished card front to a A2 card base and add my sentiment. And I added 3 more pieces underneath for some dimension on the front of the card. As usual, I have to use my T-ruler to make sure the sentiment is straight. And my card is done. I just was such a fast card using that mono printing plate, and I'm going to be doing that a lot more. It's just a really fast way to get that ink on the background and have it really be kind of random. I loved how it looked. I hope you enjoyed the process of this and I inspired you to try it as well. Thank you so much for joining me, and here's a couple more videos you might enjoy. I really appreciate the time you spent with me, and I hope you have a great day doing something you love.